on. Yes, get it. Almost got it. Come on. Yes!
I love fighting games. It really is hard to put into the proper words how you explain your love for them. The fact that there are so many really does make them special alone. And of course, like any other genre, having multiple ones is definitely a good thing. Of course, there are going to be some that stand out more than others, whether they be from AAA developers, a small independent team. Either way, if it's a fighting game, I'm definitely going to play it. I of course have my own favorites among the genre, with Tekken of course being the obvious one, but either way, I'm so glad that in this day and age that I'm not the same person I used to be many years ago where I only played one fighting game. Nowadays, having multiple ones really does make the genre that much special, and I am so glad I have branched out and changed my perspective so that I can enjoy multiple different fighting games. The one thing that really does draw me to a lot of different fighting games nowadays is how each one plays similar, yet different. Which is why I have a big collection of them right now, whether it be on my shelf or on the PlayStation downloaded digitally. I also love everything that's around the main fighting. Now of course the main fighting itself is of course, well, the main thing you play the game for. But little things like having an arcade mode, a good solid practice mode, every other good thing in between, all of that stuff I love a lot. Especially when it comes to like galleries, customizing characters, looking at movies, artwork, maybe there's a little bit of behind the scenes stuff there in between, but either way, I basically enjoy every single aspect of fighting games. I even have a little bit of a guilty pleasure with some of the bad stuff in fighting games, whether it be things that are not balanced properly or some stuff like that. But it is good to see a lot of fighting games do a lot more stuff that were done in the past, whether it be more fighting games having more customization options and appreciating every little detail on closer inspection. I love it so much, which is why all of this is completely unscripted. I just love talking about it and just gushing about it every single bloody time. It really does feel good to talk about, seeing as how I'm so passionate about fighting games. I mean seriously, my whole PS4 library is basically just fighting games. I play some other games in between, whether it be action, hack and slash, horror, all that other jazz, but fighting games are of course my main go-to when it comes to just playing games in general, and they're the ones I'm of course the most passionate about. Seriously, I love them that bloody much. If it's a PS4 and a fighting game, they go together like a house on fire. I love it that much. And the game I wanted to talk about today is the first one I got for my PS4. I love this one and I still love playing it even though it's a bit old now. But hey, that's what makes fighting games so great, right? Coming back to them and learning the ins and outs. So with that, I would love to talk about To start, when talking about King of Fighters 14, also known as straight 90s the fighting game, I'd first want to talk about the basic stuff like of course the arcade mode. Now this is your typical standard arcade mode that you get from the classic PS1 days, where you pick a group of characters or a singular character and you play for an arcade ladder where you fight the cast and you go through rival fights and other main story stuff in between. All of that stuff is really cool. And with this game, it's basically all of that, just with a little bit of better presentation. So you get things like classic character interactions, and there's about 10 stages in this arcade mode, which is really cool. And there's also a sub-boss and a final boss at the end, and like any classic 90s fighting game, the final boss is completely insane. And of course in between you also get stuff like really weird shit. But anyway, no, in all seriousness, the story revolves around this big bastard, Antonov, a giant Russian conglomerate owner who owns his own company called the Antonov Corporation, because of course that's what it's called, and he is the one who kicked off this new King of Fighters tournament, because he wanted to get funding to host this big event to raise the sales of his company, get better public reception, you know, all that good typical businessman stuff. And he actually is a good businessman. He's a bit on the goofy side. The best way I can describe him is that he's Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball Z, but I actually like him. Not that there's anything bad about that fella, but let's not talk about that. So that's basically the arcade in a nutshell. He is the self-proclaimed champion. You gotta beat him, and then after you beat him, there's a true final boss. Really cool, really simple, really 90s. I love that stuff. Moving on from that, you've also got things like time attack, survival, and all those other modes. Oh yes, and there's also missions and trials modes, where it tests your knowledge of the character, learning their ins and outs, their best bread and butter combos, and then you can take them into the regular practice mode, figure out your own combos, all that good stuff. And there actually is a decent tutorial mode that helps you learn the ins and outs of this game, and of course the tutorial mode itself is presented by Antonov, further adding to how much he thinks he's the man. So yep, that's basically all I can describe for these modes. It's your typical survival, time attack, arcade/story, missions, all that good stuff. So anyway, I'd say now we'll move on to the presentation. So let's move on to the presentation. Okay, so compared to quite a few other fighting games, the presentation is lacking a little bit. Does look a bit budget, but I don't mind that at all, because that's kind of the nature of these games, and I actually think it looks pretty good in my opinion. I mean, I'm a pretty easy follow the police, so pretty much anything looks good to me. Well, almost anything. But anyway, no, yeah, I do like the style in this game, and the one that, what was it again? Ah, yes. The way the actual game looks, because it didn't look like this at first. When it first came out, everything was a little bit more flat, wasn't as much dynamic shading and lighting, but in an update they did fix that, and it does look a bit smoother and cleaner and more three-dimensional, even though this is already 3D. But yep, really like that. Nothing much to say about the presentation other than it does its job, it looks good, but where I think it really shines is when it does the super moves. I love the super moves in this game. I have my favorites, but if I was to pick my favorite off the top of my head, mainly because it's the first one I saw, it would be this one. Oh, wait, no, I tell a lie, this is my favorite one. And for this next one, all I'll say is this game has got some mecha music. Also, when it comes to the presentation, this next part you're about to see here is basically why I don't play wrestling games. Just have a look. I watch that all the time, I love it. So the best way I can describe the gameplay in this game is a little something like this. If you've played a little bit of Geese Howard in Tekken 7, or have just seen combo videos of him, then that's basically what you can expect in King of Fighters 14. However, the big dramatic difference between Tekken 7 and this game is that if you just have one character in this game, after your first two team members die, instead of having max level 3 gauge, you have a max level 5. And that's because in this game, it has the unique gimmick of being able to chain one super into another super. For example, you can do a level 1 super, and depending on what the move is, you can do what's called a super special cancel into a level 2 super. And if you start off with a level 2 super, you can do what's called a climax cancel into your level 3. So a lot of that really high damaging stuff is best saved for your last character if you're planning on using that in an actual match. And that's pretty good too. If your opponent has about 70% health, then a full level 5 super combo is guaranteed to basically kill them right away. And one thing that's also very important to keep in mind is that there is a huge execution difference between this game and Tekken 7. Timing in this game is very tight. There are many moments in the game where it almost seems like that your input just doesn't work, but really what that is that your timing is just incorrect. So be sure to keep that in mind. Timing in this game is a bit different, even though it's a bit easier than past King of Fighters games. And one of the big things this game actually makes this easier is that it actually incorporated the max mode gauge, which of course you also may have seen in Tekken 7. This is done by pushing, if I'm correct, on a PS4 controller, which is all of us has played on. It is the triangle and X button, so light punch and heavy kick, and that does max mode. And you can cancel this after doing, say, for example, heavy into forward light punch, max mode, and then you can do something else like a crouching heavy into another forward light, into a half circle back light kick special. And yeah, the combos just get completely nuts in this game. And even just doing that with one gauge, no matter what character you pick, the damage is pretty friggin' high. If you get the execution down, you can use one bar to take off 50%. Which, now that I think about it, is kind of why the difference in execution timing is so strict. Huh, I just taught myself something there. Okay, well anyway, yeah, and another thing that you also want to keep in mind in terms of gameplay is that you need to remember that the roster in this game is humongous. There are over 50 characters in this game. All of them have good armor on moves, or at least some of them do anyway. Even the characters that look like they don't have armor, like King's standing light kick, because she's a Muay Thai character, that can parry almost anything because it's a proper Muay Thai kick. I bloody love little details like that. This game gets some really good details down in order to compensate for their presentation. So yeah, that's a nice little interesting thing like there that I actually like. And with the online mode itself, it's decent. It's okay. There are moments where you'll actually get some really good online matches, and for me, while those did happen, they were pretty few and far between. I've had some good matches with people in Hong Kong, some in Germany, and even some in Brazil. But other than that, some other people that I've played, and heck, sometimes even played people in my own bloody region, and it did not work at all. So the online in this game, the updates to the actual online netcode itself aren't as frequent, and I'm pretty sure it's been the same as it was since 2017. So yeah, it's been quite a while since then. But overall, the online is decent, and the gameplay itself makes it all worth dealing with because of how each... Let me see, what am I trying to look for here? How unique each character is? Yep, how unique each character is, and also how every one of them has really good max mode combos, which can take off about 50% and sometimes even more than that if you're really careful with your execution. So just remember that. Those are your key things you want to look out for when playing this game. Finding good openers to get into your max gauge, and figuring out really clever ways to incorporate that damage from level 2s into level 3s. That is by far my favorite part about the gameplay, as I would have shown you earlier, talking about the super moves. Ah, it's so cool. But anyway, yep, so that's the gameplay, and that's the online in the simplest form that I can explain it. I hope it was informative, and if it wasn't, yeah, sorry about that. There's a reason this game is one of the main titles at EVO Japan. It's still a really good game that has a big audience and is fun to play. And considering that SNK is going to be having Samurai Spirits come out, and that they've announced King of Fighters 15, I'd recommend you definitely go pick this up. I mean, hell, I checked on the store a couple of days ago at the time of making this review, and it actually is on a very good discount. So I definitely recommend picking it up when you get the chance. You'll be even luckier if you can even find a physical copy hanging around at one of your local shops, whether it be the Warehouse, EB Games, or whatever type of store in whatever type of country you live in, of whatever type of person is listening to this. Okay, anyway. Bottom line, I like this game. It's pretty cool. I definitely recommend to pick it up and play it if you haven't. Okay, not exactly pick it up, just put it in the console. Jeez. Okay, well, long story short, this game is awesome. I like it. You'll like it too. Definitely play it when you get the chance. And yep, I think I'm gonna end it there, Fano. Cool. So, kakite.
衝撃的な展開、激闘の末、新チャンピオンが誕生いたしました。 それではスタジオにお返しします。 AMBC クレメンス・ベラミーが決勝会場よりお送りしました。さようなら。